Appreciate this.
No problem.
Yeah, last year what we did was to include everything. I mean, I think peace is the overall arching title of the environment, making peace with Mother Earth. We talked about peace in the home. We talked about inner peace, the spiritual aspect of it. So that's how we were able to get so many of the quote peace churches involved and spiritual organizations involved in the Peace Fair. And I think my original intention, or one of my goals, was to get the community organizations talking to each other on a semi-regular basis, and that really hasn't happened other than this potluck.
Right.
And it's difficult because even though we in general share the same views on many of the same issues, we have our little niche, we have our little responsibility. Some groups are funded to do this or funded to do that, or they're like EPEC. I mean, we're all volunteer and we all give our time, and there's not enough time to do everything we'd like to do. And I'm sure every other organization experiences the same thing. But it would be nice to get all the groups together at least on an annual basis, if nothing else, for a Peace Festival. What about in terms of purposes and goals, and what do we want to accomplish? What is the audience and all that? Did they finally agree to?
Yeah, but he said that they're not going to break into, oh, my phone just went dead. They're not going to break into the house. They're just going to go knock.
Because they could be liable if, right, they could be sued. Oh, boy.
The guy's not likely to be out on his own somewhere, is he? After he committed to come here?
Yeah,
Unless he's just
he's
forgotten.
usually pretty good about, letting me know.
Contacting.
Yeah. I mean, I've only known him for, next month it'll be a full year. It's not like him.
Yeah. And you pick him up to come here.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, the potlucks were his idea.
He's been talking about this for years, since I've known him, that he wanted to get the students in the community together monthly for potlucks, and everybody thought it was a great idea, but it just didn't happen. Like, I was just saying, we all have our own agendas, and we're all doing too much sometimes, or we can't do as much as we'd like to.
Does he have windows that he can walk around and look in?
Actually, he had them pressure washed last week, and they're still up. So all I could really see was through the window on his door, and all the lights were off. You could only see the back door that was open. That was the only light that was coming in.
It's sliding glass. Yeah.
Huh?
Could you have gone on a trip or something?
A trip?
Yeah.
Well, I just talked to Jordan from Student Farm Worker Alliance, and he's out in Arizona, but he's going to contact some of the other people in Immokalee to see if maybe he went over there. Sometimes he does, student conferences or something, but I think he would have told me.
Interviews and stuff that he does.
Yeah.
Huh?
The interviews and stuff that he does. So.
Yeah. But like his van is there, all the cars are there.
Yeah, you mentioned talking to me, this potluck. He seemed like he had every intention of coming to the...
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's our guy that's never on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Right. Could the gentleman please turn the camera off?
Really? Why
Yeah.
did you shy away?
He just doesn't want to be videotaped, I guess.
Really? That's interesting. So that's why he uses the tape recorder?
Well, that's where he's
It's
right.
His radio thing.
Yeah.
It's probably something that, that from when he was younger.
Yeah.
Activist.
It is kind of ironic here. He wants to get everyone on tape for his interview show, but not him.
Kind of missed what was going on.
I was just thinking about. She was asking about some of the questions. Like,
I
if
mean,
we
the
ask
purpose
them.
and goal of the event, and what do we want to accomplish, and basically, is there an overriding theme, one theme, or multiple themes, as far as what there will be for people to do there? I mean, the basics, booths, displays, literature tables,
like last time.
entertainment, speakers, food, hopefully seminars or stuff like that. we did, when we were at the meeting with Mike at Koreshan, we did learn that at least that morning Mike had gotten a phone call that the Sierra Club was not going to be sponsoring Earth Day this coming spring because of all the internal problems that are going on with the organization. So it's, you know, in general, especially it being at Koreshan, it's going to be similar to that, but it would be nice to have a twist, something that makes it a little unique, that gives people more. And there's really all sorts of things. What I learned out last year was the mistake I made was basically organizing and doing everything myself. And why? I don't know. I think I came up with the idea, I promoted it, and everybody said, yeah. And then I start, you know, it was like I had an idea of how I wanted to go, and people were, that's good. So I went with it, and I got in too deep. I was too far into things to call and say, could you do this? Because I had already done too much with it, and I just couldn't transfer all the information around. So my mistake was that people in EPAC who weren't that involved in the planning and organization of the Peace Fair, and they would have been willing to, probably, had they, you know, been put earlier on a mission or something. So, you know, I've been telling Dana, because she, you know, agreed that she'd be willing to coordinate it. So I let her know, this is the stuff I did last year, and you really need to have different people. All in all, we think all in all it came off well. I wish we'd had greater attendance, but I think the participation from student groups here from campus and the churches and community organizations, you know, overall really went well. We thought it would have been nice to have more people. That's, you know, one of our big missions this year is, you know, are we preaching to the choir, or who are we getting? We know the people we usually talk to and the people we usually see at events. Let's try and expand it, and I think Koreshan has contacts, you know, where we can get publicity in areas where we generally don't have publicity.
Yeah, we just went to the Mangrove. I think maybe posting stuff there, sending them information would be a good place to like advertise also. And because he also said that they get, you know, businesses that go there and do their conferences, and they look at the information that's displayed. That could be a good place for you to put your info also.
Yeah.
And there's also at least one room that we could use as a workshop if anybody wants to do something, you know, that focuses on a particular issue. Maybe even, because I know that Mike said, that was his name, right, Mike? He said that since it's all like nonprofit organizations, we're not really supposed to be very political. But maybe if we do a workshop, if somebody wants to do something that's political, maybe that'll be a way to kind of circumvent the...
What you might want to do, you're talking about coming up for a theme, is from the Peace Fair last year, I think, instead of just having, you know, for your stage event, instead of having time for every organization to come up there and just present generally what they're doing, just focus the staged events so that everything centers around a theme, pick a common theme, and then and do that, because I think, you know, when you have 20 organizations going up there and everybody giving, you know, even if it's just 5 minutes, people's attention kind of wanders off, whereas if you can focus what's going on the stage with the theme, set up a theme, you know, obviously the overriding theme is peace, but set up something specific to talk about, and then keep everything on stage focused on that.
Like if people are going to go up there like they did last year, they should talk about the particular theme that you guys choose.
Yeah,
that makes
and
sense.
what you might want to do, well, this is depending on how long is the event going to be? I mean, it's going to be all day, and
yeah, we have to. I think 6 o'clock is when.
Okay.
Because it's open until sunset. So.
Okay. What I would suggest is, you know, for the general time for the groups to come up and talk, you can do that during the day, but make sure that you have a specific window, like maybe a 2-hour window that you're really promoting to get people out there. You know, and that's when you want to focus all your staged events, all the main events, focus it in that area. You know, say the event is from 10 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night or whatever. But what you're actually advertising is a specific window of time to get as the broadest group possible. Because, you know, like the same groups that showed up, the groups that we see all the time are going to be there for the whole time regardless. But if you want to get the broader audience, just give them a specific window that they can show up, and that you're going to have something ready to entertain them or inform them or whatever on the stage.
Also, I mean, chorus jam is pretty big also. I mean, there's another possibility is that we can have a stage for the music and the entertainment, and then maybe another, like, smaller stage or something where they can get information, or where the organizations can go and talk their piece.
Yeah, I know there's a variety of opinions. I know in EBEC, Holly Round was saying that all these successful peace events, big peace festivals and events she's been to, she thinks they were successful because they always had a mix of music and speakers. It was some music, some speakers, some music, some speakers all through the day. But I know other people in EBEC that are, you know, they want to do 90% music, and some maybe want to do a little heavily on the speakers. I think, you know, in the interest of compromising, and I think, you know, in generality, you try to do a little bit of everything as much as you can effectively, you know, to appeal to the most people.
Do you have a lot of bands that would be happy just to get the exposure to come and play?
I think we're still working on that.
Like local bands.
There's local bands.
Maybe even bands from the school. I don't know. I graduated a couple years ago, but you know, there has to be some.
Yeah, there's also, I
kids
think,
here
like a
who
band
play
for
music.
peace or something. Just a bunch of kids that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if they're still.
they're around.
Yeah.
They're still doing it.
So I'm sure we can find.
Yeah, we can get musicians.
Yeah, musicians, local musicians, you know. But yeah, I think it was a good mix would be good. Like a little bit of music and speakers.
Yeah.
Right. We'll create some, you know, imbalance so that there's a little bit of everything going.
I think you were on the phone. I was mentioning. I said, you know, if it was up to me and I could wave my magic wand, we'd get Dennis Kucinich and Ron Ball to talk about what should the U.S. role be in the world. You know, via foreign policy, and you know, how can we achieve peace, real peace, not the BS that our government is feeding us. And you know, that could be one of the possible theme. You know, because the new administration is coming in, there'll be new advisors. Hopefully, there will be a new foreign policy. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hopeful. And you know, maybe that's have some of the speakers talk about, give their view, their beliefs and opinions on what the U.S. should do in the world, how we should not treat other guys, we should interact with others instead of clobbering over the head.
One thing also that I would be interested to see is people talking about how they can make their home more green, and also as a way to, you know, lower costs. Whether it's just doing something small like changing their light bulbs to new fluorescent bulbs that waste less energy. They're a little bit more expensive, but they'll last longer and they waste less energy. Just to kind of bring it home to them.
Could you get vendors and contractors maybe to chip in a little bit so that it would help defray some of your costs, and they could come in and talk about their various things that they do for
Did you do that last year?
We had a really minimal. I mean, we only had, you know, really a handful of vendors. So it was like $25 charge. What Sierra does for Earth Day is any vendors that sell products or services, they take, Sierra Club would take a 10%. At the end of the day, they'll go around and either get the cash or else a check would be sent to them. And so I think they made a few $100s that way.
I think if we got networks more, maybe through Mangrove Gathering, I think that's once a month also.
Yeah.
We can do that because there was a few vendors that were represented there
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
I think they would be interested in also coming.
Is it once a month or quarterly?
It's every 2 months.
Every
two months.
Yeah, it's the
Every other
second
month.
Friday of every other month. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But
I
they have
will.
stuff on all year round.
Yeah.
I am really one of the things that I'm hoping to be able to do before the election is I'm hoping to set up an interview with Ron Paul. He's one of the things that he's done is he's set up. He's a good guy to get there. So.
I think for the general audience, we promote food, fun, music. You know, I mean that's what people go to festivals for, and the goal is hopefully that while they're there, they'll be exposed to information and they'll learn. I thought, one of the things that would have come out of last year's Peace Fair was that, EPEC would pick up some more active members, and we do have a few new members, but I don't think they directly have come as a result of the Peace Fair. So I don't think that happened. But hopefully other organizations, individuals met other organizations and maybe became involved with them.
We have the potlucks now.
Yeah, I ran away in a sense. I think it all came together. It's like, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's how things happen.
I pointed a couple people. A couple people wrote to me last night about coming here. Because I talked to Marcus. I can't think of his last name. He's an artist. What's his name?
Jansen.
Marcus Jansen. Yeah. He's an artist that lives out in Lehigh, and he's also getting involved with the Iraq veterans. He's trying to put together a local group of Iraqi veterans. He said he wanted to get more involved with student groups. So I pointed him over here. I thought he was going to come by today, but he didn't go. So.
He had to go to Port Charlotte today.
Okay.
So I came as, kind of representing us.
Great.
Because I'm working with him and
Okay, great.
a couple others, and we're trying to grow our little group in Lehigh, which is very solid, conservative. However, we're finding some new things, especially the Ron Paul idea. If we can do anything to encourage him to come, we would like to do that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we found is on a couple of issues, I come down more on the progressive side than Congressman Paul does. But by and large, I mean, if you look at the major issues that he's been concerned with, and you look at the major issues they talked about, Dennis Kucinich, probably on about 4 or 5 of those areas, there's a solid agreement. So and one of the things we can really do is build a broader coalition on that. Obviously, there's always going to be a few disagreements between people who consider themselves progressives and people who consider themselves libertarians, but by and large, I think the most important issues that we have right now, there's a real general agreement. We need to get the corporate control out of Washington. We need to get ourselves out of Iraq. We need to get the economy under control. All of these things I think there's pretty solid agreement on. And so now is the time to pull these coalitions together. And this is the area to do it. I mean, I think what the Democrats and what the Republicans are arguing basically at this point in their debates is 20th century politics. I mean, they're so far behind the curve, and not only what's going on around the world, but what the American citizens want. I mean, you can tick off the issues that they're arguing about, going back and forth between McCain and Obama. Healthcare is a perfect example. I mean, their positions on healthcare. The majority of people in this country want some kind of universal coverage. The majority of physicians in this country want a single payer plan, and yet agree or disagree with it. Nobody outside of a few candidates is even broaching that idea. So this is something, and that's just a good example.
They say what they think we want to hear. I think try to garner most people.
Yeah, I think
to one side or the other.
It's they go for the lowest common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
They triangulate what's the safest position to take that's going to offend the least amount of people, and in the end they end up not really pleasing anybody. So this is what we've got to get away from.
In general, they swim toward the middle. But I remember when Ronald Reagan was running for re-election, on every issue when people were polled, they disagreed with Reagan on every issue, and he won in a landslide. So issues are important, and you want to be in the mix, in the mainstream. But I think it's the personality, and it's also with Reagan. You might have disagreed with him, but you said he's an honest guy. I know what he believes in. He's forceful, and I think to some extent McCain has some of that, and Obama has some of that. That's where you got what was it, in 2000? More people wanted to have a beer with George W. Bush than Al Gore. I think that's why Bush won. But of course, I don't think he won, but that's why.
Well, I think one of the things that President Reagan had going for him is he had that coherent vision.
Yeah.
Again, agree or disagree with it, he was somebody that laid out, and what he was presenting at the time was relatively fresh to what was going on in the political system, and so that gets a lot of people interested. And right now, Definitely, I mean, with Obama, I think Obama has got, I don't know, I think the message seems to be getting more and more muddled every week.
Yeah.
But I think he's got more of a coherent plan. And what I hear talking to the Republicans in the district is nobody seems to really be able to pin down what John McCain exactly is presenting. So I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction on the GOP side with that.
Have they established debates yet?
The presidential debates?
No.
I think
They're
they're
not
really set.
nominees officially, I guess, so.
Yeah, but I think they probably have the dates in terms of it's
I think
now
they have.
it's now like a corporation, basically the organization that sponsors these debates. They took it away from the League of Women Voters, and it's now an amalgamation of the Republicans and Democrats. It's their past party chairs and corporate bigwigs that are in this organization that are determining when the debates are. I think there'll be 3, 2 for the presidential candidates and 1 for the 2 vice presidential candidates. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think Obama can stake a strong position on issues that aren't directly in the middle. They can be maybe a little contrarian, but state those positions logically, intelligently, and forcefully. And I think people will gravitate more to that than the mess in the middle.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you have to represent, your constituents. And again, I said, in the presidential race, early on, I said that, agree or disagree with them. On the Democratic side, you had Dennis Kucinich, who I think spoke in terms of the issues. He represented his Democratic constituents better than anybody else, and Ron Paul on the Republican side represented his Republican constituents better than anybody else. And if there's politics based on the issues, that would have been the matchup we'd be seeing today. And I think we'd all be better off for that, because we would actually be framing those issues in terms that people are actually not only interested in hearing, but that really represent the views that are out there.
I recall in some of the Democratic debates when people were polled, who was the winner? Kucinich was the winner in some of those debates.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, look at the amount of money that Ron Paul raised, the huge amount of support that he had on the web. I mean, when was the last time you saw a presidential candidate getting so many people out, on the streets every weekend in a town like Cape Coral or Fort Myers? I mean, so there was a huge groundswell of real grassroots support for both of those candidates, and that's really, and I think the reason is because they were honest, they were clear, and they're presenting a real account of what needs to be done.
Tom, remember you sent me the link to this website called glassbooth.org.
Okay.
It's a great website that was created by grad students from, I keep forgetting what school it is, but it was it's non-biased, non-partisan, and the grad students basically just created a database of where this was back before the primaries, but it's still exists right now. But anyway, it compiled like how each candidate has voted on the issues. So you go there and you
Rank.
you rank. You did this, right?
Yeah.
You rank what issues are important to you. What's your stance on the issues, and at the very end, it matches you statistically with the candidates and how it gives you a percentage each candidate and how you match on the issues, which is a lot of people, which should be why it's a big reason why people decide how to decide what candidate you're going to vote for.
Yeah.
So it's a useful tool.
Is it still popular?
I don't know if it really ever got that popular, but online it's a bunch of people use it, but not a lot of people are aware of it. But I hope it gains
So
some
you can really
popularity.
only use it once.
You can go do it again.
Well, yeah, but
But yeah, well, once you do it, it gives you the result,
Right.
and then it tells you if you want, you select the candidate. Let's say you were like 88% compatible with Kucinich or something, and then it'll tell you which issues that you agree with him on, which you don't. So it's really informative.
So they need to have a voting record they can put in there then, otherwise it's not worth much, or can they put in their positions? If they're a candidate instead of an incumbent, can they put their positions in instead of a voting record?
Are they doing it just for the
No.
presidential
no,
race?
It does it for their issues, whatever they're supporting.
It examines historically how they have voted on a certain issue. So yeah,
okay.
I think that's how they get their.
I think they're also looking at position statements too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That'd be cool to put on the Progressive Aliance
Sure.
Facebook.
actually.
Grad students, GRAD,
Yes.
No, it's glass
Grad-
booth.
Grad booth. Oh, the organization, the website itself is called www.glassbooth.org, I believe.
Glass booth,
That's right.
okay. My ears
I'll
are
give you the
not
information on that.
I was on a similar site, I guess last year, I don't know what it is now, but it gives you a grid, and it, tell you, answer the questions, and it tells where you fit. So I was progressive with some libertarian tendencies, I think, something like that.
That's probably what I would do.
I think.
Have you seen the Bush timeline on Mother Jones?
No.
That's fun to deal with. I mean, you can slide this thing up and down whatever month, whatever year, and you can see what lie he told during the time.
I think that the Daily Show did
about
some
certain
kind of
issues.
thing with that.
It's called Bush timeline.
The Daily Show
Oh,
did-
Bush lies timeline.
Yeah, so there's some skit about how like if you got his statements and played them like backwards, you're like, oh, we actually won the war.
Yeah, before we started.
We're better off now. Like they used to talk about country music records. If you play them backwards, the guy gets his dog back, gets his house back, gets his wife back.
And a new truck.
Tractor. There you go.
And his truck, yeah, most important.
I forgot to bring this at the last meeting, but Amnesty International sent me this their guideline on how to organize a lot of meetings and things like that. And I think if you want to take a look at it, you can see what you like, what we don't like, and just kind of use the positives and, to make it'll help us plan the event. I think it gives a whole like schedule about how like
The piece there.
like any big event actually, typically like that.
Cool.
I think I'm gonna be setting up a small cluster meeting with different student groups or different schools in the area, like a human rights thing in the fall. Get them all together, and I'll let them know about the Peace Fair and see if we can get more maybe high school students involved.
That would be great.
Is there any other amnesty groups besides the one in Naples, right?
Just that I know of, just Lehigh and us.
Lehigh or Lehigh?
I'm sorry, Laylee, right?
Lehigh.
Laylee and Laylee and this group, and I can never get a hold of the people on Laylee, but I think they're associated with the UT.
Yeah, Dr. Duarte.
Let's see, and ACLU is doing a lot of stuff with some of the legislation in Florida, like that amendment number 2 called the Marriage Protection Amendment. It's basically it's already out. Gay marriage is already outlawed and things like that. But they're trying to pass this legislation, and it's going to affect a lot of people, including people who aren't even homosexual. People who cohabitate, they might encounter problems if they go. They call it the Marriage Protection Amendment, but it just basically would just take away more rights that people already don't have. One of the things that it might. Well, let me take a look at this, but. Let's see. For example, if the legislation, the language in this legislation is something like to the effect of only heterosexual couples are only recognized as a legal union. So they have things right now where you can register. Let's say you're an elderly couple, and your partner dies, yet you cohabitate with someone else, but you don't want to remarry because you get their pension benefits or something like that. You get and then it might also have problems with people who get in an accident, get into the hospital. If you're not legally, if your union isn't recognized, then you might not have the right to go see them at the hospital.
Or to make decisions about
Make decisions, exactly. So the Amendment 2 is something that's an important piece of legislation coming up. And I also got asked to, they're starting to do some meetings with local legislators. And one of the issues is to help end the 30-year-old ban on gay adoption. But apparently in Florida it's illegal, or gay couples can't adopt children. And the whole adoption system in this state alone is really messed up. And there's also something about ending mandatory sentencing for drug convictions. And just they're trying to promote, like alternative kind of treatment, because that's not working.